Hello, my name is Adam. This is a video about a very common problem, complaint. A lot of students say, I just can't speak in English. Um, and the problem of not being able to speak in English when you know an awful lot of English is exactly how many students feel. For me, though, unfortunately, the majority of then teachers turn around and say, look, just be patient, keep practicing. It's a question of time. Keep going. Try to speak, don't worry about this. It will come with time. And I kind of don't like that kind of answer. I don't like when you say, well, all I'm going to tell you is, oh, just don't worry. It's going to just disappear. I think that we can always find something more precise to attack and have short-term goals and really look deeper into the problem than just think it's just a question of quantity over time. Now, so I think about all my students. I found there really 7 common problems, and I'm going to present solutions to those problems that maybe you can look at starting almost immediately. So the first typical problem is fishing with no hook. So the problem here is that you feel your brain just goes blank. And I don't mean blank as like the way the meditation teacher wants you to go blank. You are blank, you don't know what you want to say. You just can't come out. You know that there's something you want to say, it's just not coming. And I think one of the problems here is you haven't learnt, or you haven't really practiced enough that first hook into your idea, that first sentence that we use very naturally to get an idea going. So, for example, phrases like, well, or for example, I think, well, yes, you could say that, but I disagree with a couple of points there. All these type of phrases will start your brain and contact you into what you want to say. And that, if you think about it in a way, these don't say much, but they do reflect your feeling about what you want to say. And in connecting with your feeling, something which you haven't yet verbalized, because often we don't verbalize until we say it, you're expressing your feeling, then you can feel easier. You can feel what the idea is and bring it out. Okay, so how can we fix this very common problem? Well, firstly, is learning some more beginning opening phrases. These type of things you use in your native language. How many do you use in English? How often do you just say something before you start speaking in English? Okay, and the second thing is, once you've learned some of these phrases and all the different ways to express emotions, could be positive, negative, could be a bit confusion, could be to say, oh, that's a bit complicated, really. Well, then worry, then what's next? So you just practice that first answer. Let's see what happens next, okay? The second very common problem that you might have when you can't speak English is that actually you are speaking, but you feel that you're jumping and not dancing. So you pause a lot, you think things are not very fluent. And the problem here is very similar to the first problem, but you're not using the linking language to help you speak. This linking language not only will grab the next idea, like fishing with no hook, it's going to help the listener. So linking language, there are lots and lots, things like because, and, very common ones. But on the other hand, and secondly, while at the same time, I think, okay, so there's another common problem, and it's to do again with learning some of these basic phrases at the beginning, okay? And these phrases are actually very useful, not only for you as the speaker, but for the listener. And I call this driving the bus. In other words, as the person is speaking, you are telling them what's going to happen next. You're about to disagree. You're about to give them extra information, all these different things. So you're helping the person listen and follow your main ideas. So it's really important. So we use it in language all the time. Maybe 30, 40, 50% of language is linking language, not saying what you feel or your ideas. So learn some of these phrases, okay? What you need to do now maybe is just practice speaking without saying anything important. A bit like a politician. I'll give you an example. I'll try to think of an example now. Yes, that's a very interesting point. And I think if we look from both sides at this argument and we take a step back and we look to give a good summary about the feelings that someone, might feel in, looking back at this situation from both sides of the argument, we could come to the conclusion that that's very difficult. But if you just, when you're speaking, focus on this kind of linking language rather than here's my point, try and make a connection, try and make another connection, and maybe practice small points in between. Okay. The third possible problem and some solutions is teaching yourself surgery. The problem here is that you're basically trying to create the rules yourself. Okay, now, but the rules already exist. Now, there are two versions of this possibility. One is that you're trying to create actual grammar rules. You really don't have enough experience of the language itself. You're literally trying to translate from your native language into English. The second one is that you're fairly good with grammar, but you actually don't have the rules of conversation. You haven't experienced enough conversation. So your English is based around grammar, textbooks, the occasional pretend dialogue in a book, but really you haven't experienced conversation. So all the language that we use in a conversation, you haven't experienced enough for you to absorb it. So what you're doing is you're recreating the language just from grammar. Now, this is a bit like thinking, oh, well, I've seen a photo of lasagna. I can make a lasagna. No, you really have to experience it. So what I recommend here is to go in, look at these, find some dialogues, look at some films, and almost not necessarily memorize, but really follow the dialogue. Notice carefully how they ask questions, how people receive answers, move the conversation forward. That's something you could definitely look at. Really just learn and experience more of what actual conversations are rather than trying to invent the way that we have conversations.